नमस्कार दोस्तों. Today 27th March 2025 we are going to discuss editorials from Business Standard. We are going to discuss two articles. One article is related to rooftop solar project, rooftop solar system with storage, whether consumers are ready. Recently government has made a decision in this direction, so we are going to discuss this article in detail. Next article, we are going to discuss about Indian economy, how India is going to do and how Indian economy is going to perform in the next financial year, and how Indian economy will be impacted by both internal and external factors. So this article we will discuss in detail too. So without further delay, let's start our discussion. And you all are welcome into Democracy with Dungavat channel. First thing first, rooftop solar. This has gained a significant interest in the minds of the people when Prime Minister Narendra Modi has launched Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, basically PM Yojana. If you see some facts, before launch of this scheme, cumulative rooftop solar system installation, they were around 11.07 gigawatts. But in the 1 year itself, post launch of this scheme, there is almost 5.21 gigawatt has been added, which is almost 50% of the data. So this shows how predominantly it has been dominating in the residential sector. So far good, but when this solar penetration increases, there are several concerns we need to take care of. What are all those? There is a grid stability, reliability, intermittency, local over injections. They all are growing, and then we are facing such kind of issues. In response to those, government came up, Ministry of Power, they issued advisory. They urged discoms, basically distribution companies, in order to consider mandating 2-hour storage with rooftop solar system. Basically what they will do, they will maintain 2-hour storage facilities, but later Central Electrification Authority, this is a PSU body and it makes all decision related to electricity related. So they told this is a guidance, and then this guidance could become 2-hour storage facility by discoms. This can become mandatory in the future. As you all are know, solar, it is a daytime output, and then we cannot get it in night. So using storage to get power during other periods, basically evening there is a huge consumption. Basically we will call each evening as a peak season or peak hours. So this seems kind of obvious solution. Whatever solar energy that has been generated since morning till evening, whenever sun energy is available, so that storage facility can serve for 2 hours. So that this can reduce cost immensely. How to store? Batteries, they are becoming cheaper, but they are still very expensive. So this issue is further compounded by fact because there is a undercurrent net metering frameworks. Basically households, they can treat grid as virtual battery. This allows them to draw midday export power back at night nearly at zero additional cost. What you are doing is you are producing, you are storing in the grid, and then you are taking back. Basically Pradhan Mantri Yojana, they have provided subsidies for smaller RTS system. They prioritize support for the poor, but this diseconomies of scale for small users, they are being amplified by adding storage. You want to buy solar plates, this itself cost very high, but it is amplified when you are putting storage facility also. It will cost them, in order to store 1 kilowatt peak hour, roughly around 65,000 to 75,000, even excluding government subsidies, even soft loans. Large system, they benefit from economies of scale. However, 5 kilowatt peak RTS system, this will cost around 1.6 times more than the storage. There are several questions that need to be think about: additional subsidies for storage, even compensation for grid support also. There are calculation that vary by several states based on kind of tariff they will provided, but author says according to their analysis, and even it indicates adding storage typically doubles the payback period, and this can render financially unviable in some states. Even one more thing we need to consider: there are several technical barrier when we go with rooftop solar with storage system, or rooftop solar system with storage. This can be also told as hybrid system. This basically differs from conventional grid connected rooftop solar. In grid connected rooftop solar, what you will do, you will produce the energy, you will directly send it to grid. However, in this hybrid system, you have inverter, then you store the energy, and then you direct that solar energy to household loads, basically through grid, through batteries and station battery storage. Basically all these batteries are made up of lithium ion batteries. This kind of controlled area network bus system for seamless communication between inverter and battery. Most hybrid inverters, they currently operate below 60 volt. When you operate at 60 volt, you need very high current. This could result in inefficiencies. And then with high capacity systems, inverter that are above 3 kilowatt, they generate high current outputs. So this cause thermal losses, even reduced efficiency also. Additionally, absence of Bureau of Indian Standards guidelines for these hybrid inverters concerning battery operating voltage, this has resulted in market inconsistency. With some manufacturers, they are losing high voltage inverters, while others they are putting just 60 volt threshold. This create kind of fragmented landscape for hybrid rooftop solar adoption. These technical challenges, they highlight need for standardization, optimized system design in order to enhance both efficiency and reliability. India should standardize and mandate smart inverters to improve discom viability in order to bring solar generation. It provide reactive power support, enable dynamic control over the solar absorption based on grid conduction, and even it ensures last mile stability. How to make rooftop solar hybrid system financially viable? The greatest advantage with battery system, because it absorbs excess electricity when oversupplied, and it discharges basically during peak demand periods. In order to unlock the full potential, time aware tariffs according to the time of the day, compensation for additional services that are provided by storage system, basically capacity support, reactive power, they are kind of very essential. If you see in India, retail electricity pricing, this kind of distorts solar adoption incentives. When you go into elections, many of the electoral pledges, they come up with free electricity. So this will put poor away from the solar system because they cannot afford to pay. Anyhow, they are getting electricity at free of cost, so they won't have a look at rooftop solar system also. Mostly the rich, basically those who are consuming very high electricity, they have strongest motivation in order to adopt this solar because of the elevated per kilowatt hour cost that changes as per tariff structures. Even without solar in the mix, most state tariffs, they are kind of under recover fixed cost from the households, thereby costs are disproportionately covered through per unit energy charges. This makes solar even more distortionary than existing cross subsidies, because consumers with rooftop solar lower their grid usage, while fixed grid cost like last mile transformer, they remain unchanged. Aligning true system costs, even reducing electricity cost incentives, they are kind of very essential. We need to learn from California's net energy metering 3.0. This kind of serves as a example in order to compensate solar exports at a time. Wholesale electricity price offering at $150 per kilowatt hour rebate. For battery storage, even 30% federal tax credit on total system cost. For this 5 kilowatt power rooftop solar, with 2 hour storage. California model effectively subsidizes about one third of the total system cost. This is very good. So India can move in this direction. What you need to do in the long run, without proper compensation mechanism, only household planning to go off grid or those concerned about grid reliability, they are likely to adopt this hybrid RTS based on the economics. Imposing storage mandate without appropriate compensation, this risk slowing RTS adoption even rather than accelerating the system. India's residential rooftop solar sector, this is at crucial growth stage. There are certain concerns about grid stability, excess solar injection, they are kind of valid, but enforcing storage requirement without clear technical financial framework, this could deter buyers and significantly hamper RTS installations also. The next logical step, what is it? It is to establish well-defined policies. They kind of address both technical integration, financial feasibility. So both of them enables RTS and then storage in order to synergize and scale sustainably. So this article has been written by researchers and fellows at Center for Social and Economic Progress Research Foundation. This is very good article. We are going to discuss next article about Indian economy. Recently, National Statistical Office, they estimated India's gross domestic product growth rate for 24-25 at 6.5%. This is basically slightly above what was estimated by Reserve Bank of India, even several forecasters, because 6.4% was the estimate they estimated. NSO's estimate this marks return to pre-pandemic decadal trend growth rate. Basically following growth rate of 8.8% for financial year 2020 to 2023. If you see India's recovery from COVID-19 pandemic, this is marked by several things. There is sharp upward revision in growth estimate, but from low base. Basically, economy, it has been contracted to 5.8% in financial year 21. Government focus on the infrastructure development, rapid digitalization, strengthening bank balance. They kind of scripted a fast rebound. In financial year 26, what we are going to expect is the growth rate would be 6.5%. This would be driven by domestic factors because there is a global uncertainties, because there is a rise of tariff wars, especially with United States of America when Trump has come into power in his second term. Standard and Poor Global, in its outlook, it notes that basically Asia Pacific emerging economies, example like China, they are likely to be supported by domestic demand. This leads only mild downward revision in growth outlook for 2025. Having said that, risk to forecasts at these junctures are tilted to downside. Basically, there is a less risk. High frequency data, this is already flashing slowdown in global growth. Even Organization for OECD, Organization for Cooperation and Economic Development, they revised global GDP growth forecast for financial year 25 to be 3.1% from 3.3%. Even in addition, World Trade Organization, it is expected, even world trade is expected to decelerate in the wake of kind of protectionism, insular industrial policies. This Standard and Poor GEP supply chain index, this is also showing kind of underutilization of global capacity. Even at the same time, inflation forecast it has been shown revised upwards. Like advanced economies, it suggests that kind of restrictive monetary policies being followed. India, we are reducing, RBI come up with repo rate, they have reduced repo rate, basically injecting money. But when you see worldwide, they are following restrictive monetary policy. United States Federal Bank, they paused rate cuts. Basically, it was anticipated in this year. Given kind of these uncertainties, several other advanced central banks, they will prominence to real-time data in order to do kind of assessments. If you come to India, India's domestic factor, they kind of provide reassurance in kind of three areas. First thing, there is increasing share of services in India's total exports. This provide kind of some buffer against global trade disruption. Basically, if you see financial year 2025, the proportion is 47% from 31% in financial year 2011-12. Even analysis by author shows that India's goods trade is always followed by global trends. Service has been maintained kind of resilient path. In the first 11 months of financial year 2025, merchandise exports remained steady at 396 billion, almost in line with previous year kind of. But when you see service, they kind of showed healthy growth. So in order to be sure, India runs kind of trade surplus with United States of America. It imposes higher tariffs on US imports. Actually, it is unless it is not happening in vice versa. So goods trade with sizable contribution from micro, small, medium enterprises. This is going to have a greater impact in future run. Second thing, India's external vulnerability they remains very robust because present current account deficit. We are good at exports only. When it comes to import, we are good at imports. We are not good at kind of exports. This cause current account deficit to grow. There is a low external debt servicing commitments, then ample forex reserves, growth premium over large economies. These are all factors going to be impacting a lot. Healthy external buffers, they kind of helped India weathering global uncertainties, even capital outflows also. If you see in October 2024, February 2025, foreign portfolio investors, they kind of took 22.7 billion from Indian markets compared with almost 22 billion of net inflows in the preceding 6 months in October 2024. So despite all these things, rupees depreciation has been orderly like during previous stress period also. So it is going in orderly manner. Third thing, we are expecting that food inflation will be eased, borrowing like cost will reduce, even tax benefit to middle class also support consumption and overall growth momentum. Significant reduction in food inflation after 3 years above like 7. This will support discretionary spending, especially by low income households from urban and rural areas that spend more on the food. Assuming monsoons, even nil major weather events, healthy agricultural growth, and lower food inflation, they are kind of expected to contribute huge growth rate in financial year 2026. In addition to that, Reserve Bank of India repo rate and several other rates, marginal standing facilities and all. This began in February with basically they have reduced quarter point repo rate. So they are expected to supplemented by additional 75 basis points in 2026. They provide mild support to growth because monetary policy action they take time to influence economic activity. Tight liquidity conditions, basically RBI is addressing, it further slows transmission process. In addition, there is one good thing, low crude oil prices. There is still average crude price around $70 per barrel in 2026. This will help keep current account deficit inflation in kind of check. This supports GDP growth, even reducing input cost. Easing food inflation, lower crude oil prices. This will bring headline inflation kind of closer to RBI's 4% growth in 2026. Headline inflation basically it includes all form of inflation. Basically it is kind of major growth rate. RBI is mandating 2 to 6% inflation range basically to maintain at 4% and then plus or minus 2% as a tolerance limit. Even if you see core inflation, this is expected to rise 4.5% from estimated 3.5% because of the low base effect, higher gold prices. Basically growth nearing its trend, crude and commodity prices remaining soft. Upside risk to core inflation is also kind of limited. Investment, they will maintain their share in GDP in financial year 2026 also. Investment activity in government, even household sector, they are mainly leading economy recovering after pandemic. Despite better financial flexibility, investment by private corporate sector, they remained tepid. National Statistical Organization sectoral data they released in February along with second advance estimate, they confirmed the trend for financial year 2024. Even the situation is unlikely to have changed significantly in 2025 also. In 2026 alone, too, this corporate sector they are unlikely to decisively take over investment baton from the government because there is a rising global uncertainty. They kind of lead to postponed investment decisions. As United States, they impose high tariffs, raises trade barriers on Chinese imports, excess capacity, deflationary pressure in China. They are bound to result in exports being diverted to other countries, including India. This is already imports heavily from China also. This is also creates demand uncertainty in the domestic producers. This kind of imposes safeguard duties on some of our imports. This kind of shows risk of materializing. Center they budgeted 10.1% growth in capital expenditure. If this expenditure completely and fully implemented, there will be more supportive growth in the financial year 2026. Even it is crucial to prioritize creation of pipeline that is ready for project to minimize cost, even time overruns in government project. Basically it will take a lot of time, almost they run out of the cost, even time overruns. They strictly follow the deadlines. The same applies with state government also. At this 6.5% GDP growth, India will maintain leading position among larger economies. Domestic factors they will become increasingly important for the economy in the coming years because world is going to become too much protectionist. While India needs to forge trade alliances, but India should take proactive steps in order to leverage the shift in supply chains because of the trade disruptions. Even economic reforms to address the domestic bottlenecks should be the top priority in the coming days. Author concludes swiftly enhancing the ease of doing business, basically by reducing compliance burden, even simplifying regulations and laws. They are very crucial levers to drive growth marathon, even achieve Viksit Bharat goal by 2047. The author is Chief Economist at CRISIL. So this article has been written by Dharmashikti Joshi. So we discussed through two articles today. Thank you. Thank you very much for discussion.